Welcome to Night Stories, where shadows whisper, nightmares crawl, and every tale drags you deeper into the dark. If you dare to listen, leave the lights off and let the night begin. David pulls the crowbar back, dust sifting down over his forearms in a chalky drizzle. He pauses, catching his breath, sweat darkening the collar of his shirt. Beside him, Anna watches with arms folded, her weight balanced against the door frame, lips pressed together the way they get when she's worried but doesn't want to show it. "You sure you want to open this up tonight?" she asks. He leans the crowbar against the wall and wipes his forehead with the back of his hand. "If I stop now, I'll never finish. And you're the one who wanted the dining room open before the holidays." Anna gives a small smile, but it doesn't touch her eyes. She looks past him at the strange bulge in the plaster, a section of wall thicker than the rest, built clumsily as though someone had added it in a hurry. The house inspector had mentioned it months ago when they bought the place, but only in passing. "Probably just an old repair," he'd said, but it isn't. David knew it the moment he ran his knuckles across it and heard the hollow echo underneath. Their daughter Emily, 6 years old and restless with curiosity, sits cross-legged on the floor a few feet away, scribbling in a coloring book. She hums under her breath, a tuneless little melody that makes the silence between each crowbar strike more pronounced. Every so often she glances up, eyes wide, as if waiting for something exciting to tumble out of the wall. David forces the tool back into the seam and pushes. Another crack. More dust. Something about the smell that seeps out, the musty, closed-in odor of wood that hasn't breathed in decades, makes the back of his throat itch. Anna steps closer, frowning. "It smelled wrong." "It's just old," he says quickly, though he feels it too. Not just old, stale, heavy like air that's been trapped too long and doesn't want to be let out. The final push gives way with a dry groan, and a slab of plaster collapses inward. Dust erupts in a choking cloud, and Emily squeals, clapping her hands over her face. David coughs hard, squinting through the haze. When the dust settles, there's an opening large enough to crawl through. What lies beyond is not insulation or framing. It's a room, small, narrow, no windows, just 4 walls the color of nicotine stains. Anna grips his arm. "Oh my God!" Emily peers around him. "Daddy, somebody lived in there." She isn't wrong. A narrow bed frame sits against the far wall, the mattress caved in like a hollow chest. A threadbare blanket lies twisted on top, faded pink with yellowing edges. Beside it, a small wooden dresser, one drawer half open, the handle missing. On top of it, a child's hairbrush with bristles warped and bent, a stack of picture books, their spines curled from age. David feels his stomach knot. The air in the hidden room is colder than the rest of the house, damp enough to raise goosebumps along his arms. He forces a breath. "Stay here," he tells Emily, his voice more brittle than he intends. He ducks inside. The floor creaks beneath his weight. It's not just the bed and dresser. There's more. A row of small shoes lined carefully against the wall. A cracked ceramic mug with faded cartoon characters on the side. Scattered pages torn from notebooks. Scribbles drawn in heavy crayon strokes. Red, blue, black. Childish handwriting. Looping letters that falter midway, like someone learning how to spell but never quite mastering it. His skin prickles. Anna stands in the doorway, hesitant to follow. Why would anyone seal this off? David doesn't answer. He doesn't want to say it out loud. The smell here is stronger. Metallic beneath the dust. A tang that makes the back of his tongue sting. He picks up one of the notebook pages. The paper flakes at the edges, but the writing is still visible. "My name is Ruth. I live here." Beneath the letters is a drawing of a stick figure with long hair, drawn over and over again, until the paper nearly tore. David's throat tightens. He lowers the page back onto the floor. Behind him, Emily whispers, "Who's Ruth?" Anna quickly pulls her daughter close, shushing her softly, though her own eyes are wide and unblinking. The house settles around them with a deep groan, old wood shifting in its bones. The sound reverberates through the hidden walls, and for a moment David could swear it comes from deeper inside, as if the house is reacting to being opened. He forces himself to keep looking, though every nerve in his body tells him to stop. The dresser drawer that's ajar, he pulls it fully open. Inside are small clothes, folded neatly, dresses faded from time, socks stiff with dust. At the very bottom lies a stuffed rabbit, one ear missing, the stitching at its belly split open, yellow stuffing peeking through. His fingers brush against something hard beneath it. He pulls it out. A photograph, black and white, edges curled. A girl, maybe 7 or 8, with straight hair cut blunt at her chin. Her smile is small, uncertain. Her eyes looking not at the camera but slightly away, as though she'd been distracted at the moment the shutter clicked. On the back, written in shaky pen, Ruth, 1961. Anna exhales sharply. This house was built in the 50s. David stares at the photo, his pulse drumming in his ears. The year gnaws at him. 60 years ago, a child lived here, in this hidden room, sealed away. Why? He feels Emily tugging at his sleeve. Daddy. Her voice is small, afraid. He looks down. Her eyes are fixed on the far corner of the hidden room. David follows her gaze. At first, he thinks it's just more shadows. But as his eyes adjust, he sees it. Faint marks carved into the wall. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, scored deep into the plaster. Short lines stacked in clusters of 5, over and over, climbing from floor to ceiling. Tally marks. Anna's hand flies to her mouth. The 3 of them stand frozen, the silence pressing heavy against their ears. Then, so faint it could be imagination, David hears it. A soft scrape from somewhere behind the wall. Not in this room, deeper. Something shifting in the darkness they haven't yet uncovered. The sound dies as quickly as it came, leaving only the thick, stale air around them. Emily clutches Anna's hand, whispering so softly it barely carries. She's still here. That night, none of them sleep well. David lies awake in the master bedroom, staring at the ceiling fan as it turns in slow, uneven rotations. Each creak of the blades sounds amplified in the stillness. He tries to quiet his mind, but the image of that cramped room, those tally marks rising like desperate fingers on the wall, refuses to leave him. Beside him, Anna turns restlessly, pulling the sheet higher, then lowering it again. Her breathing never settles into the soft rhythm of sleep. At one point, she sits up, presses her palms against her face, and whispers, "Why would anyone do that to a child?" The words are muffled, as if she doesn't want to release them into the dark. David doesn't answer. He feels a weight in his chest, not just dread, but responsibility. He'd been the one to open the wall, to let something out. Across the hallway, Emily's small bed creaks now and then. She's usually a heavy sleeper, but tonight she shifts and murmurs in her dreams. Twice she calls out, "Ruth," soft and confused, as though she's talking to someone in the room with her. At dawn, the house is silent. When David finally rises, the floorboards groan under his feet. The air downstairs carries a faint sourness, as if the smell from the hidden room has spread through the house overnight, seeping into the wood and fabric. He pours himself coffee, but even the bitterness can't cut the taste at the back of his throat. Anna joins him at the kitchen table, her hair unbrushed, eyes rimmed in shadow. "We should call someone," she says. "Who?" "The police, or, I don't know, someone needs to know about that room." David stares at his mug. He can picture the headlines. Family finds hidden room in old house. It would bring attention, questions, people crawling all over their home. "It's just an old space," he says carefully, though the words feel dishonest as soon as he speaks them. "There's nothing illegal about it anymore. Whoever Ruth was, she's long gone." Anna gives him a long, searching look. "You don't believe that." He doesn't, not entirely. The day drags. David tries to busy himself with repairs in the kitchen, tightening cabinet hinges and patching peeling linoleum, but every sound carries strangely through the house now. The hammer on the nail echoes too sharply. The pipes groan more than they used to. Once, while bent beneath the sink, he hears what he swears is a child humming faintly, Emily's song from the night before. But when he straightens, the house is quiet. Emily, for her part, avoids the dining room altogether. She sits on the living room carpet with her dolls, her small fingers moving them stiffly, but her eyes flick toward the darkened opening whenever she thinks no one is watching. "Sweetheart," Anna asks gently, crouching beside her, "why don't you want to go near the room?" Emily shrugs, fiddling with a doll's hair. Because Ruth doesn't like it when I go in there. Anna's breath catches. She forces a light laugh. Ruth isn't real, honey. Yes, she is. Emily looks up, her face serious, her voice soft but certain. She told me. That evening, they eat dinner without speaking much. The sound of silverware scraping plates fills the silence more than conversation does. At one point, Anna tries, maybe we should seal it back up, but her voice falters like even suggesting it feels foolish. After Emily's in bed, they return to the dining room together, flashlights in hand. The air in the hidden room hasn't improved. It's heavier now, thick with the sour metal tang. David steps inside again. The beam of his flashlight cuts across the bed, the dresser, the tally marks climbing the walls. He forces himself closer to inspect them. Each mark is jagged, carved deep with something sharp. Not the impatient scratches of a child passing time, but deliberate, forceful, desperate. Anna lingers in the doorway, hugging her arms to her chest. It feels wrong in there, she says, barely above a whisper. He doesn't disagree. His light flicks across the dresser, over the scattered papers on the floor. Something catches his eye near the baseboard, a faint discoloration in the wood. He crouches, sweeping away the dust. The beam reveals a dark stain, irregular and sunken into the grain. For a long moment, he doesn't move. His stomach twists. David? Anna's voice is tight. He straightens quickly, turning the flashlight away. It's nothing, just old water damage. He forces the words through his teeth. But he knows it isn't water. Later that night, while Anna showers, David stands alone at the kitchen sink, staring out the window into the dark yard. The glass reflects his own tired face, and behind it, the faint outline of the dining room, the gaping hole in the wall. For a moment, he thinks he sees movement there. Just a shift of shadow, quick and darting. When he turns, the space is empty. Upstairs, Emily stirs again, murmuring in her sleep. David climbs the steps quietly, pushes her door open just enough to look inside. Her small form is curled beneath the blankets, hair damp with sweat, lips moving in whisper. He leans closer, straining to catch the words. Don't leave me here, don't leave me here. Her voice cracks with something too raw for a dream. David reaches to smooth her hair, but before his hand can touch, her eyes snap open. Wide. Dark. She stares past him, toward the corner of her room. David turns sharply, hard in his throat. Nothing, only shadows. When he looks back, Emily blinks slowly as if waking from a daze. Daddy? She whispers, small and frightened. He forces a smile, brushing her hair back. Go to sleep, Em. But when he returns to bed, he doesn't sleep either. Hours later, just before dawn, the house breathes. A long, low creak that rolls through the walls deeper than settling wood. It rattles a picture frame off the hallway wall, glass cracking on the floor. David sits upright, pulse racing. From the dining room through the floorboards comes a sound. The faint scrape of something dragging across the hidden room's wall. By morning, Anna has had enough. She sits at the kitchen table, pale, her coffee untouched. I'm calling the police, she says flatly, not looking at David. This isn't a project we can just paint over. Someone needs to know what happened here. David opens his mouth, then shuts it. He knows she's right. But a part of him resists, the part that fears what they'll uncover, the part that wishes he'd never touched the crowbar to that wall. Still, he nods. All right. The patrol car arrives mid-morning. 2 officers step out. One older, deliberate in his movements, the other younger, shifting from foot to foot with restless energy. They introduce themselves as Detective Harris and Officer Lynn. Inside, the air feels heavier with strangers in the house. Harris listens carefully as Anna recounts what they found. The bed, the dresser, the child's belongings. She doesn't mention Emily's whispers about Ruth or the sounds in the night. Those things would sound ridiculous in daylight, under the scrutiny of a man with a notepad. David leads them to the dining room. The younger officer mutters a low whistle at the sight of the opening. Dust hangs in the air even now, faint motes catching the daylight. Harris steps inside first, his flashlight beam steady. He takes in the bed frame, the dresser, the shoes. He kneels at the tally marks, running his fingers lightly across them. Long time ago, he murmurs. Lynn crouches by the dresser, pulling open drawers. The sound makes David's skin crawl, an intrusion into something that feels private, sacred in its horror. Harris straightens, jotting in his notebook. No sign of recent occupation, but it's clear someone lived here. He looks to David and Anna. You say you didn't know about this when you bought the house? No, Anna says quickly. David shakes his head. The inspector never mentioned it was a room. Just said the wall was thicker. We thought it was a repair. Harris nods slowly, lips pressed together. These old houses, sometimes they hold secrets. Emily peeks from the hallway, clutching her doll. Her wide eyes are fixed on the officers, but not with the fascination most children have with uniforms. She looks wary, almost resentful. Daddy, she whispers, tugging at his sleeve when he steps back into the hall. They shouldn't be in there. It's okay, he whispers back. They're just looking. She said they shouldn't. The words chill him. In the dining room, Harris calls out, Mr. Miller, come take a look at this. David forces himself forward. The detective points at the floorboards near the bed. With his flashlight angled low, a discoloration spreads wider than David noticed before. Not just one stain, several. Dark, irregular, some sinking deeper into the cracks. Harris's voice is even but not casual. This will need forensic testing. Could be anything, of course, but... He doesn't finish the sentence. Lynn carefully bags the stuffed rabbit, the notebook pages, the photograph. The sight of those things disappearing into plastic makes David's stomach twist. As if they're not remnants of a child's life, but evidence of a crime. By the time the officers leave, the house feels different. The silence they leave behind isn't relief. It's heavier, as though the house resents the intrusion. Anna sinks onto the couch, pressing her hands to her temples. So it's real, she whispers. Whatever happened to her, it's real. David doesn't answer. His eyes wander to Emily, who has retreated to the stairs, half hidden behind the railing. She hugs her doll tight, watching him with an expression too solemn for her age. That night the phone rings. Harris, his voice is measured, professional, but something in his tone makes David's pulse quicken. We ran the name, Harris says. Ruth Klein, reported missing in 1961, 7 years old. Last seen walking home from school, just a few blocks from your address. David grips the receiver tighter. The house seems to press in around him, every shadow deeper. Harris continues. Her case went cold. Parents moved away, no closure. A pause, then. We'll be back tomorrow with a team to conduct a deeper search. Until then, keep that room undisturbed. David swallows hard, his mouth is dry. Of course. He hangs up slowly. Anna looks up from the table, her face ashen. What did he say? David tells her. She covers her mouth, eyes wet. From the top of the stairs, Emily's small voice drifts down. I told you she was real. They both turn to look at her. She stands in her nightgown, hair falling in her face, eyes glassy with sleep. Or something like it. Her doll dangles from one hand. She doesn't like them digging in her room, Emily says softly. She told me. The silence after is suffocating. David forces a shaky laugh. Emily, you just had a dream. But Emily cuts him off, her voice flat, certain. No, she was sitting on my bed. By mid-morning, the house is no longer theirs. 3 marked cars idle along the curb. Neighbors linger at their windows or on porches, drawn by the low hum of radios and the thrum of official voices. Inside, uniformed officers move deliberately through the rooms, boots scuffing across the old floors. Harris is there again, leading a team that includes 2 crime scene technicians carrying metal cases that click open like surgical instruments. Anna stands at the kitchen counter, arms folded tightly across her chest. Her jaw is set, but her eyes flick nervously toward the dining room every few seconds, as though she's waiting for something to emerge from it. David hovers uselessly near the entryway. It feels wrong to see strangers measuring their walls, dusting with powders, setting up bright work lights that bleach the dining room in an unnatural glow. The house has always been dim, shadows lingering in its corners. Under the glare, the space looks exposed, wounded. Emily sits on the bottom stair, hugging her knees. No one has told her to move, but she doesn't step closer either. Her gaze stays fixed on the hole in the wall, unblinking. Inside the sealed room, one of the technicians photographs the tally marks. The camera flash explodes again and again, each burst throwing the carved lines into harsh relief. Hundreds of notches, stacked until they form a kind of frantic geometry. Harris crouches beside the stains on the floorboards, gloved hands brushing gently. "We'll take samples. If it's blood, age will make it hard to test, but we'll try." The younger officer, Lynn, carefully opens the dresser's other drawers. Each small item is bagged: brittle socks, cracked plastic barrettes, a paper scrap with half a doodle. Their motions are clinical, detached, but David can't shake the feeling that the room resists like a wound being prodded. The smell intensifies under the lights. What was once a faint tang now hangs heavy, metallic and sour, making the air hard to swallow. The technicians remark on it casually: "Old mold, maybe rodent decay." But David sees Anna's knuckles whiten as she grips the counter. Hours pass. The search spreads beyond the room. In the basement, officers tap along the foundation with hollow thuds. In the attic, dust plumes rise as boxes are shifted. Every creak of the house under their weight sounds strained, resentful. Emily does not move from the stairs. Once, when Harris passes by, he crouches to her level. "You doing all right, kiddo?" She doesn't answer. She only looks at him solemn and says, "You won't find her if she doesn't want you to." Harris blinks, unsettled for the first time. "And who told you that?" Emily looks past him toward the dining room, then buries her face against her knees. By late afternoon, Harris gathers David and Anna in the kitchen. His voice is calm, but his words are heavy. "We can't draw conclusions yet. What we know is this: a child lived in that space. The belongings date to the early 60s, which matches the timeline of Ruth Klein's disappearance. If the stains are what they appear, then we may be looking at evidence of a crime." Anna swallows hard, her hand trembling as it grips David's. "So someone kept her here, all this time in this house." Harris nods once. "We'll need to check property records, trace ownership, find out who lived here in the early 60s. Whoever sealed that wall, they knew." The words hang in the air, they knew. That evening, as the team packs their cases and the officers file out, the house exhales. The silence that follows is worse than the noise. It feels charged, waiting. The work lights leave a stark glare in the dining room, bleaching the small bed frame into a ghostly silhouette. Anna sinks onto the couch, exhausted. "I want them to take it all away," she murmurs. "The bed, the dresser, everything. I don't want it in this house." David looks at her, then toward the open wall. He isn't sure removal would change anything. The marks would remain, the air, the feeling. Emily finally lifts her head from her knees. Her voice is calm, matter-of-fact. "They won't take it," she says. "She won't let them." Anna flinches. "Emily, don't—" But the girl slides off the stair and walks toward the dining room, bare feet silent on the wood. She pauses at the threshold, small frame outlined against the bright floodlights left behind. "She says they never looked in the right place," Emily whispers. David's chest tightens. "What do you mean?" Emily raises her hand slowly and points toward the far wall of the hidden room, where the tally marks climb thickest. "They didn't look behind there." The words settle like stones in the silence. The next morning, the officers return with more equipment. The whine of power tools, the thud of hammers, the steady murmur of voices. The house is alive with intrusion. Heavy plastic sheets drape the dining room, sealing the work area from the rest of the house. Bright halogen lamps throw every corner into merciless exposure, leaving nowhere for shadows to gather. David and Anna sit at the kitchen table, cups of coffee cooling untouched. They're not permitted inside the work zone, only to wait, listening as the house groans with each strike. Emily sits on the bottom stair again, as she has since it began. Her doll rests in her lap, but she doesn't play with it. She stares toward the dining room, lips moving silently, as if whispering to someone just out of sight. From behind the plastic comes Harris's voice, firm and low. "Deeper than we thought. Whoever sealed this put more than one layer." A drill bites into the wall. The vibration hums through the floorboards, rattling the glassware in the cabinet. Anna flinches with each strike. "They're hurting her," she whispers, not realizing the words are out loud. David doesn't answer. His stomach feels knotted, every sound from the dining room like a blow to his ribs. An hour passes before Harris calls for them. They stand at the edge of the plastic curtain, peering through. Dust hangs thick, the air acrid with the smell of old plaster and something sharper beneath it, metallic and sour. The second wall has been breached. Behind the tallies, the plaster is gone, exposing rough wooden boards. Between them, a black void yawns. A technician directs a flashlight beam into the gap. The light catches on something pale inside. Not plaster, not wood. Anna grips David's hand hard. Oh, God. The technician adjusts the beam. Shapes emerge. Small, fragile, curved. Bones. They lie huddled in the narrow crawl space, pressed against one another as though trying to keep warm. A small skeleton curled on its side, knees drawn to chest, skull tilted downward. The faint outline of fabric clings to the bones. A faded dress, threads brittle with age. The room goes silent except for the buzz of the lamps. Even the officers hesitate, the air thick with something beyond procedure. Harris clears his throat. His voice is steady but subdued. We'll need to remove the remains carefully, document everything. No one touches until it's photographed. But the silence swells, pressing in on them all. David feels sweat bead on his neck, though the air is cool. He can't look away from the hollow sockets, the small rib cage collapsed inward. Emily steps closer, slipping past her parents before they can stop her. She presses her hand to the plastic curtain, eyes locked on the crawl space. "That's not her," she says softly. Everyone turns. "What did you say?" Harris asks. Emily doesn't blink. That's just what's left. She's not in there anymore. For a moment, no one speaks. Harris clears his throat again, dismissing her words as a child's imagination. He orders his team to continue. But David sees the way one of the technicians shifts uneasily, his gloved hand hesitating before setting down a camera. The work continues. The bright flash of photographs fills the space, capturing the bones in stark, frozen light. The sound of latex snapping over wrists, the rustle of plastic evidence bags. Every flash seems to make the air heavier. Anna grips David's arm, whispering so tightly he almost doesn't hear. "Do you feel that? It's worse since they opened it." He does. The house seems to vibrate faintly beneath their feet, as if the walls themselves are holding a breath too long. Hours later, the remains are lifted carefully, bone by bone, into sterile containers. The small dress follows, its fabric disintegrating at the edges. The crawl space behind the wall is left gaping, black and empty. When the last case is carried out, the officers file quietly from the house. There are no reassurances this time, no clipped remarks about further analysis. Only the heavy silence of men who have brushed against something they'd rather not name. By dusk, the house is quiet again. David and Anna sit in the living room, the dining room still sealed in plastic. The air feels thick, hard to breathe. Emily sits cross-legged on the rug, her doll in her lap, humming softly under her breath. When she stops, the silence feels sharp. She looks up at them. "She's not happy," she says matter-of-factly. David forces a smile. "Emily, sweetheart, it's over. They found her. She can rest now." Emily tilts her head. Her eyes are dark, too old for her face. "No," she says. "That wasn't the only one." The words sink into the silence like stones dropped in deep water. David stares at her. "What do you mean?" Emily lowers her gaze to the floor, stroking her doll's hair. She says there are more. "The house is different now. It is quieter, but not in a comforting way. The kind of quiet that swells in your ears, a pressure that makes every breath feel borrowed." The plastic sheets in the dining room sway faintly, though no draft stirs the air. The crawl space gapes black and empty, a wound no light can fill. Anna can't bring herself to go near it. She stays in the living room, clutching a blanket around her shoulders, even though the evening is warm. David paces, restless, as though the floor itself won't let him stand still. And Emily sits on the rug, doll clutched tight, head tilted like she's listening to someone just out of sight. "She won't stop talking," she murmurs. David stops pacing. "Emily, who?" "Ruth," she says simply. "She's mad. She said you didn't find the rest." Anna's voice is sharp, cracking. "Emily, stop it!" But the little girl only lowers her eyes and whispers something inaudible, as if answering someone no one else can hear. The house creaks then, long and low like something shifting in its bones. That night David can't sleep. He lies staring at the ceiling, Anna's breathing shallow beside him. Every sound is magnified. The tick of the old clock in the hall, the occasional snap of settling timber. And beneath it all, faint as a breath through plaster, a scrape. Not from the dining room this time, from deeper. He rises before dawn, flashlight in hand. His footsteps are soft on the stairs, but Emily is already awake, sitting on the bottom step in her nightgown. She looks up at him, her face pale and serious. "She's waiting," she says. David swallows. "Where?" Emily points, not to the dining room but toward the basement door. The wood feels cold under his hand as he pulls it open. The air wafting up is damp, heavy with mildew and something sharper underneath. He flicks the light switch. The single bulb sways faintly, casting the basement in a thin, jaundiced glow. He descends slowly, Emily behind him despite his whispered protests to stay upstairs. The steps groan beneath their weight, the air thick with the scent of rot. The basement is mostly empty. Stone walls, a cracked cement floor, an old furnace hulking in the corner. But the sound comes again, faint, rhythmic, like nails scratching against wood. David follows it. Past the furnace, against the far wall, stands an old shelving unit sagging with dust and rusted paint cans. The sound is behind it. With trembling hands, he drags the shelves aside. Dust rises in choking clouds. Behind it, a section of wall different from the rest. The stone is uneven, mortar lines clumsy, as though someone filled in a hole quickly, desperately. Anna's voice calls faintly from upstairs, alarmed. "David?" But he doesn't stop. His crowbar bites into the mortar, flakes crumbling away. The scratching sound grows louder, impossibly so, like it's just on the other side. Emily watches silently, doll clutched to her chest, her face unreadable. The final stone clatters to the floor. Behind it yawns a narrow cavity. The flashlight beam cuts through the dust, illuminating shapes inside. Not one, not two, several. Small forms pressed against each other in the shallow earth, half buried in crumbling soil. Bones, brittle and pale, fragments of dresses, shoes with curled leather, a row of empty sockets staring blindly back. The air floods with a stench that has been sealed too long, sweet, rotten, suffocating. David staggers back, gagging. Anna reaches the bottom of the stairs just in time to see, her scream tearing through the silence. Emily doesn't scream. She only whispers almost tenderly, "I told you, there were more." The house seems to shudder then, a deep groan reverberating through its beams and bones, a sound that vibrates in their teeth. The bulb above flickers, casting the basement in violent shadows. Anna grabs Emily, pulling her back, but the little girl's eyes remain fixed on the dark cavity, unblinking. David's flashlight trembles in his grip. The beam dances across the bones, the fabric, the hollow eyes staring back. For a moment he thinks he sees movement in the shadows behind them. A shift, a curl, as though something deeper is retreating just out of sight. The smell thickens, pressing against his lungs, and then faint but clear a voice whispers from the cavity. Not Emily's, not anyone alive. "Don't leave me here." The flashlight slips from David's hand, clattering to the floor. Its beam rolls across the cement, freezing on the jagged line of yet another wall beyond the bones, its surface scarred with hundreds more tally marks. Thank you for listening. Hope you didn't get too scared. If you want to listen more stories, check out my channel. Please leave a like and subscribe. It means the whole world to me.